Welcome to Immigration Review, your weekly source for immigration case law updates and insights. I'm your host, Kevin A. Gregg, back again to review the week's presidential immigration cases, rummaging through the decisions so you don't have to. This podcast is sponsored by Kurzban, Tetzeli, and Pratt, also known as KKTP, a law firm where I'm also a partner. Whether you are facing an immigration obstacle, a serious injury, or a legal issue in your business, KKTP will aggressively protect your best interests. This podcast is also sponsored by Docketwise, an all-in-one immigration forms and case management solution trusted by thousands of immigration lawyers across the U.S. I really like Docketwise. It makes immigration applications easy by allowing the clients to provide information through simple online questionnaires that are shareable by text or email and available in multiple languages. Not only that, Docketwise provides a comprehensive group of case management features, including invoicing and calendaring, secure messaging, task management, and a lot more. You can learn all about Docketwise and receive a 10% discount on your subscription by heading to docketwise.com/immigration-review, so they know we sent you. And as always, this show does not constitute legal advice and has no bias other than to keep you up to date and to enable you, my dear colleagues, to excel in court. So, without further ado, let's start the review. So, a couple of weeks ago, I appeared on John Khosravi's podcast called Immigration Lawyers Podcast. It was a great time, and so I thought I'd repost the episode in the Immigration Review feed as well. Many of you probably already know John because he's kind of the OG of immigration podcasters. Quite the esteemed group, I may add. But for those of you who don't know John, like me, is an immigration attorney in Southern California, the host of Immigration Lawyers Podcast, and also the president of the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox, a program to educate and train immigration practitioners, as well as promoting immigration lawyers within the field and to the public. For information about the various training programs and CLEs that John offers, email info@immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com or visit the website by the same name. And after talking to John, he and I decided to team up a bit. I'll now be appearing on his show during the first week of every month to discuss an important immigration case or two and other happenings in immigration law. I'm excited and honored to be on his show. So check out Immigration Lawyers Podcast feed at the beginning of each month to hear our discussions. So with that, I present to you my Zoom conversation with John.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining episode 152 of the Immigration Lawyers Podcast. We have a real special guest today. I'm really excited. You know, the podcasting world in the immigration space is small, and we had a great colleague, Gregg, a partner at the Kurzban law firm, who started a podcast called Immigration Review. So I reached out to him just to connect and see what kind of stuff he's working on, and he was so kind to come on the show to discuss his background and do the 10 questions with them. I definitely recommend checking out his podcast. It's great continuing education for free on his immigration podcast called Immigration Review. He goes over federal court cases on a regular basis, so it's a easy thing to do on your drive to work or when you're in the shower. Listen to this stuff to catch what's the latest going on in federal court. I definitely recommend doing that, and definitely going to have it back on the show so he can share his insight and all his experience that he has. On a secondary note, last episode, I did an interview with Jared Jascott. Jared is a immigration lawyer like us, but he also he created a bot. So what this bot does is a chat box where people contact you, for example, through Facebook. It communicates with them. It's AI, machine learning kind of stuff where it can answer them, get their contact info, try to schedule something with you, a lot of different stuff. And he was kind enough where he said after the interview that if listeners of the Immigration Lawyers Podcast want to test this out, he'll give 60 days, a 2-month free trial to see if it works for you. So I definitely recommend doing that. I'm going to do it. I'm preparing to do it. So why not check it out? 2 months free trial. Jared's a good guy, supporting a fellow immigration lawyer, just making it easier for clients to connect with you and take you where you need to go. On a last note before we start, I've always talked about the Champions for Freedom program. I don't usually talk about it too much. I just had a lot of people contact me since we started the podcast asking for help, how to be an immigration attorney, how to learn this stuff. And I created the Champions for Freedom program. I don't really plug it or market it as much because this individual training and coaching I was doing, which took a lot of time, but it was, it's pleasurable and it still is. But I'm getting so many people contacting me without even marketing it that I decided, I'm just going to make a full-on fixed course that's going to be like 6 weeks or 8 weeks or something like that. People just tune in every week as live video with handouts, and we go from the beginning to the end of the process for the marriage type green card case that I do. So we go over inadmissibility, the various type of green cards and visas. Those that's an overview, but then go into detail of how to do a CR1 conditional relative one, immediate relative kind of marriage case, fiance case, removal of conditions, I-751, and I-90 renewal, naturalization, N-400, and things that come with that, and just breaking it down so if you're new to this field, you know exactly what to do, what forms there are, how to answer them, the issues. Now, there's always more stuff, and so a tag along with that is a membership period with the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox, the premium channel that I have there that has continuing education so you can follow up because everything changes so constantly. But it's a great way to get involved, and I just get asked about this a lot. By having a group program, the price comes down a lot too, so it's much easier for people to handle it as opposed to the one-on-one sessions that were more expensive, frankly, before. I think this would be a better program. Plus, you're in a group, so it has more communications. One person asks the questions, the rest can hear it too, and it could bring out a lot more discussion. So just email me directly for that info at immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com. Lawyers is plural. And with that, let's get it started. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our wonderful podcast episode. Should be number 152, maybe, I think. But we have Gregg. Kevin's a colleague who's not only an astounding immigration lawyer. You might know him. He's a partner at Kurzban firm in Florida who just moved to San Diego. But he's also a fellow podcaster doing great work, doing analytical work of good content that's, regular people listen to it too, but for other immigration lawyers, it really saves them the hassle of having to read these decisions. Plus, they're getting expert analysis with it. Pretty much your podcast, each episode is worth like $500 hourly, or that's because you're spending probably more than that because the hours you spent to read it first, make sure you have it presentable. This is hopefully people appreciate how much value you're bringing. So I wanted to have you on the show so people could know about your program more. Thank you, Kevin, for coming on.
Well, thank you, John, for having me. When you put it like that, I started doing the math in my head, and actually, I'm not going to do that math anymore. But it's a lot of fun. I'm really happy to do it, and it helps me out as well. So really, I'm just trying to help everybody and doubling on my own work. Thank you for having me on your podcast. You're kind of, as you and I were joking before, you're kind of like the OG with immigration podcasts. You're the first. You've got all these episodes. You're doing great work and giving us a name on the electronic media. So thank you for starting it. Because when I first started out, you were actually the first thing that I saw. We typed in immigration podcast into Google, and there you were. And I said, uh-oh, I hope he's not doing the same thing.
I think Charles Cook has a radio show, which turned the podcast as well. Maybe Redirect came around the same time. And then, fortunately, unfortunately, there's a graveyard of podcasts if you go to iTunes for immigration lawyers. So get started. But the consistency is the key. That's what wins out for getting, notoriety, recognition, clients, all that kind of stuff. You just got to keep doing it, and you can't stop, even when sometimes you don't feel like doing it. And the way you're doing it weekly with case, that's a lot of work. So it requires a lot of patience and dedication. So definitely stick with it. It pays off in the end.
Thanks, John. That's what I tell myself every week. This week's a bit difficult. It is now, we're recording this on Thursday evening Pacific time. No circuit has published an immigration case this week. It's the first time since we started in April that no circuit has published. So I'm a bit worried. I guess I'll have to go back and maybe analyze a board decision from earlier this year. If everyone's silent tomorrow, we'll see what happens.
Why is that? Is it just this time of year they're on vacation or something?
No, the last, I'd say the last 5-6 weeks, there's been 6, 7, 8. There was even a 10 case week. They've been very active. I don't know, this week, Monday was a holiday, but it's very surprising. But, we might be counting our chickens, counting our eggs, whatever it is, before they hatch. Because sometimes on Friday, they'll hit me with 5 at once. And the board has been publishing at 5:30 p.m. Eastern on Fridays, it seems. I guess they kind of want to sneak their non-citizen adverse decisions in at the end of the week or something.
Going off track, what we're going to talk about, just about getting to know you, there's a regulation that's coming into effect tomorrow on the 11th And it gives Health and Human Services, CDC, the right to ban people from certain countries if it's like a health situation. And I just read a news article on it. I haven't read the whole thing, but it seems like it says if they're they don't use the term partner, they use like their cohort or something like that who's in the United States, they could pick them up and remove them too, which is, I was like, this, that really doesn't make any sense. So someone's already here on a visa and their country gets banned, you can just kick him out. So hopefully I'm reading that wrong. It was a mistake, but that's crazy that's going on.
I just, there's just so much all the time. I'm doing my best to try and keep the bar updated on the case law changes, and I keep myself up to date on all the USCIS and Department of State changes, but there are so much. I certainly rely on other partners at the firm as well, Helena Tetzeli and John Pratt, and of course Ira, to keep up to date on everything, because there's something every single week, multiple times a week, and it's crazy.
There was a lawsuit filed, and I'm having Andrew Paparelli on the show next week or week after. He was amicus curiae on it about the filing fee increases. They're like, well, how are you filing fee increasing when you're spending the money on enforcement, which is not part of USCIS? So we all heard the rumors. They would say USCIS employees get overtime if they go help ICE out. And it's like, what money is this coming from? So
I've not heard that. I have no reason to doubt it. That's horrifying.
It's so crazy. I mean, there's just so many of these things that are happening. It's unbelievable. Like it's hurtful for people's lives. It's really sticking to people really bad.
It is, but again, we could talk about so many things, I guess, for hours. But I kind of have the inside scoop on it. Let your listeners know. I mean, like Ira's book. Ira does that book. That book is Ira, which. I was suspicious before I came to the firm, but he does it. He's insane. He reads everything, and the book goes to the editor, and then it goes back to Ira, and then and in between that, so there's so many changes happening every time. So in the 2 weeks, maybe whatever it is between he finishes the draft and goes to the editor, he's got to update it for dozens and dozens of hundreds of pages. And I asked him, how do you stop? You just stop. It was just issued, and people are getting their advanced copies of his new book right now. But it, of course, will not have the change that you just mentioned. I mean, it's just so crazy what's happening now. I don't know how Ira sleeps at night with it all, but
he's got to make a Wikipedia-style page that's all online for that, because as soon as before it's even published, he did the interview with him. He's like, every year I have to get a new one because every time it comes out 2 years, because it's almost immediately outdated because of work. You can't be using the old ones. It's just crazy.
It's nuts.
So where did you grow up? Where are you from?
I'm from South Florida, Broward County, small place called Cooper City, someplace special. That's our slogan. It's about 35 minutes northwest of Miami.
So Broward County, that's where the shooting happened with the students, right?
Yes, name your shooting. But yes, that is where the Stoneman Douglas shooting happened. That was North Broward, almost at the border with West Palm. But yeah, that's where the shooting happened. There's actually a 1990s movie called Bully, based on a book by the same name. The book's pretty good. The movie's like a B movie, and that's based on events that happened at my high school in the 90s. They killed a bully, put him into the Everglades. That's what we're known for.
In California, taxes are going high. You just moved back to California. You were in California, you left and came back or something like that. I remember you telling me. It just between all the craziness and taxes and wildness, I've been thinking about switching up places to go. Some say Florida, some say Texas, maybe Nevada. I'm like, dude, Florida always has the craziest things. So it kind of scares me of going to Florida. Although it's beautiful and it's got so many different kinds of places. I get worried about going to Florida. I hear so many wild kind of stuff from there.
But Florida is 2 or 3 states. North Florida is essentially the old Confederacy, and a lot of it. And some of the South, they have that mentality. Wow. Confederacy is a strong word. North Florida is more akin to the Deep South, and South Florida is a lot of New York transplants and, of course, Latin American immigrants. So it's really 2 states, maybe even 3, how you're counting it. So it's a unique place for sure.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So you grew up there, and then what got you into immigration? How'd you find your path here?
Well, in law school, I hadn't really thought of immigration law. I was trying to get as much experience as possible, trying to do as good as I possibly could at Boston University. And I ended up getting a research assistant position with a professor during my 1L summer with Professor Susan Akram, who does immigration law. She was running the clinic at BU at the time, and also macro immigration issues, such as like stateless peoples, and academic and scholarly research as well. And because of that research position, I kind of dipped my toe into immigration, not so much immigration law, more the macro issues. But when I then went to go to the Equal Justice Works conference in DC for my 2L internship, I sat down with the Office of Immigration Litigation, OIL, the guys who defend the board decisions in front of the Circuit Courts of Appeals, the DOJ arm. I had a good story, and I had some experience in immigration, and they hired me for that internship, and it turned into an externship for the fall of 3L, which turned into a 2-year clerkship with EOIR in the San Diego Immigration Court. And then after that, I moved back to Miami. I went to clerk for a federal judge, and I wasn't sure if I was going to come back to immigration, but Trump won during my clerkship, and Ira Kurzban is in Miami, and the stars aligned, and that's how I ended up back in immigration.
Well, being on that side with oil and EOIR, what is your perception of what goes on there and how those people think about the situations that they're dealing with?
Yeah, sure. So my experience with oil and EOIR was both during the Obama years, so I can't speak so much to what's happening now, so much at least different than what your viewers can as well. But when I was there, far and away, I came into contact with smart people who cared about their job, cared about the law, cared about applying the law correctly. I'm of the opinion that that the biggest problem with immigration law is IRA, and just the law in general. If you apply IRA as it's written, it's pretty harsh. It's not very friendly to the non-citizen. And so sometimes you have to get very creative to not do that. And there aren't so many immigration lawyers, maybe a lot of the viewers of your show, I like to think of myself, but hopefully, who are making those creative arguments. And so if you just apply the law, a lot of people get deported. And so when I was there, I saw people at OIL who were trying to be human, have discretion when they could, but also enforce the law. And the same with the judges in the San Diego Immigration Court. There are a lot of failings with EOIR, especially, and less with oil. But with EOIR, you can get frustrated a lot. And sometimes I hear the immigration bar talking about these giant nefarious things going on with EOIR, which might be the case under Trump. But a lot of it is just trying to get a hold of this massive organization with overworked staff. Sometimes it's not nefarious immigration judges and clerks trying to screw immigrants, but it's just inefficiencies.
Yeah, definitely. So you started working for Ira Kurzban's firm, at the famous Ira Kurzban, and you come to San Diego. What does the structure of your firm look like? I mean, you're new. San Diego, it's you're setting up shop here, so you're a bi-coastal firm now. Could you talk about how life is working in practice for those solos that are listening to this?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've only been in San Diego for 3 weeks now, and I've got the luxury of being tied to the firm. We've always been nationwide. We go all over the country for federal and immigration court and USCIS practice. We go to California a lot, and medical malpractice for that matter. But I do have the luxury of having staff and assistants and resources in Miami, and all this great tech and all this Westlaw. And so I'm just kind of the arm of that in San Diego. I've been setting up. I've got my desk, my computers, and I'm barred in California and Florida. A lot of what I'm working on are still Florida cases from the firm. And the idea is going to be that Miami helps San Diego helps Miami, and we're one firm. It is a bit difficult to get immigration court and clients at the moment with the court shut down, but I expect and I hope that we will be getting clients in Southern California and San Diego soon, and we'll have a robust practice out here.
So what kind of cases do you personally focus on? I know you guys are a full service law firm and do everything. Any particular areas you focus on that are your favorites, if you will, or spend most of your time?
Yeah. The firm definitely does everything in immigration and a lot in business. And of course, we have a whole medical malpractice arm as well. But my favorite, though, is anything in federal court. I enjoy it. I kind of like the weird procedures and the high level writing on both sides and the collegiality between between the AUSAs and sometimes DHS assigned to the AUSA's office, it feels like what lawyering should be. And there are DHS attorneys in immigration court who act that same way, but it's not the same. They don't respond to their emails, and it feels like more of a battle. So I like the federal court practice. You can do a lot of good work, and you can do a lot of creative writing. But I really like immigration court a lot, especially appeals, BIA, and of course petitions for review. But if you're at the BIA and the petition for review stage, as everyone knows, you've already lost once, twice, and now you're arguing about standards of review and all of those things that don't really have to do with the case. In immigration court, if you have a fair judge and if you've prepared your client and if your client's not lying, you can hash it out on the facts. Yeah. And to get a win on the facts and to have a judge grant it is a feeling that, I don't know, for me, you can't get anywhere else.
Mm-hmm. And have you seen there be any changes with the AUSAs when you go into federal litigation? I would hear in the past, like, they would answer calls, but I think now they're just overwhelmed where it's not as easy to get a hold of them. Some colleagues have told me that. Have you seen any changes in that interaction?
I have not. I've had nothing but collegial and responsive relationships with AUSAs. We try and do the same thing. It's a give and take, right? We're very responsive to them as well. What I have seen a bit, and again, I haven't been around that long, but it seems to me that the local U.S. attorney's offices are pulling in oil more and more for district court action, and that's partly a product because oil district court section has ballooned over the last 5 to 10 years. When I was interning at oil in 2013, they barely had a district court section. Now the district court section has just as many as the appellate section, I've heard. So the attorneys from oil in DC maybe not as much as responsive with district court, but I haven't had that many experiences with that, so I can't attest.
Yeah, from what just colleagues have told me, it's not that their culture has changed; it's just they're slammed with work because of all the lawsuits that are coming in. So just overwhelmed with work, so it makes it harder to just get a hold of them. Kind of like nice attorneys, some of them feel, some of them just don't want to probably return your calls or something, but I'm sure a lot of them are slammed with the amount of cases that they have. What do you like the most about the immigration practice?
I think it's two things. And the first one I alluded to, I mean, you actually can change the life of someone. It's cheesy, but I mean, it's cool. You can't do that anywhere else. Again, getting that win in immigration court or getting it remanded from the board and like it being a win, and it's a real person. Mm-hmm. It's amazing. And I'll be honest with you, both when I was an immigration court law clerk and in federal court, even though it's hardly at immigration at all, you have to continuously remind yourself that the files that you're seeing on your desk are people. It is very easy to just look at it as work. I don't speak for any judges, but it's easy to just think about it that it's just another number, it's just another assignment when you're not seeing these people all the time. And when so many of the people you're seeing in immigration court are not telling the truth or telling half-truths, it's very easy to get cynical. And I think the best judges are the ones who are continuously reminding themselves, no, case by case, these people are people. So I like the human aspect of it the most and the ability to do good. But from an intellectual standpoint, I love the ability to play with the act and the regulations and the immigration law. I mean, you've essentially got 11 circuits plus the board plus the Supreme Court deciding these matters. You have 13 entities plus the statutory text as well. It's a lot of room for creative legal arguments, and I really enjoy that.
Now, on the flip side, what is that you dislike the most about the practice?
The law is so weighted against the non-citizen. I mean, it's if you look at the history of immigration law from the 50s really onward, or start the 20s, whatever, it's just they never make it easier for the non-citizen to remain in this country. They ratchet it and ratchet it and ratchet it up, and the law is written to enable removal, and our job is to prevent that. And so it's hard, it's hard to tell a client, you've been here 25 years, you're a great person. There's not really a legal argument to let you stay. That doesn't mean you don't try if you have a viable legal argument, but I hate that. We lost we lost an adjustment case recently with USCIS based on fraud. There was fraud. We all admitted it, and they weren't going to exercise the discretion. We briefed the hell out of it, and it's now currently on appeal. But we got that decision in the mail. It was like 20 pages. I put my heart and soul into it, and I just wanted to bomb it. Mm-hmm. And I asked Ira, I'm like, does it ever get easier? And he said, no, it doesn't. If it did, I'd be worried. Yeah. Because it means you care. And so I guess that's a compliment, and I hope it is. I take it, but it doesn't make for easy living.
Yeah, that's a problem. Like when you enjoy the plus side of the winning and helping people, the downside, which is more often it's like that than the positive.
Yeah.
Especially when you do a removal defense. But if you get an adjustment status denied, that's the chance of USCIS approvals are much higher than UIR kind of stuff. It really is a punch in the gut to get that kind of stuff. It's like it's how surgeons probably feel when their patients die on them or something like that. Feeling. And you see some doctors, they kind of stop caring too because it's too much of an emotional drain to have that. So yeah, I always like when I see immigration attorneys that are a lot older, like, you either you got to go get therapy or something, deal with this fight constantly, or they just stop caring. There's got to be one of those, because after so many years of this, it's hard to handle it unless you got a good system and you're doing breathing techniques and all that kind of stuff. It's really tough.
Yeah, no, that scares me. I think about that a lot. I certainly don't have an answer to it, and I'm trying to get better at it. And I also don't think it's a product just of immigration. I think it's an old trope. You don't see that many old litigators out there, just litigators in general.
Yeah.
For that reason, I don't know. Maybe our generation will figure out the answer to it.
The litigators I've seen that are really older still doing it are just people who love to fight. They enjoy because it's going to war. It's legal, non-lethal, non-violent war you're going into intellectually. Yeah. It is draining. It's fighting. It's tactics. It is full contact sport, if you will. So it takes a lot out of you when you go in that courtroom. On your feet, you have to jump and figure out stuff to do. It's a lot. And you got a person's life on the line right there next to you.
That's right.
They're like looking at you like, what are we going to do? And you're like, sorry, that's it. It's a bad situation. What are some of your most memorable moments in immigration practice?
Putting aside some of the stuff I saw behind the bench, with Ira's firm, I haven't been there that long. Considering when you compare me to other lawyers, but there have been memorable things. We got the preliminary injunction for the Haitian TPS holders in the Eastern District of New York in January of 2019 after a 4-day bench trial, partnering with nonprofit entities and the law firm Mayer Brown. And that was amazing. Being in federal court every day, arguing these cases, putting your witnesses on, and then getting that injunction at the end of it. I think the judge issued about a 250-page decision in which he's talking about the racism and the APA violations, the ends-oriented analysis that USCIS employed to deny TPS for Haiti. It's currently on appeal to the Second Circuit. We'll see what happens, but it's tens of thousands of people. And it's exciting. It's really cool to be in federal court, and it means a lot. On a less grand scale, because that is something that you don't get to do every day. And I thank Ira for that opportunity, and so many attorneys were involved in that. Doing a 6-day bench trial in a naturalization case, being in federal court, getting the BIA to remand, and eventually succeeding in the case of an individual who was wrongfully incarcerated for 25 years, who ICE still tried to deport, even after he was released from custody for a crime he didn't commit. So, there's a lot, and it hasn't even been that long.
And the people who get crushed in the grinding accesses of justice or injustice is like just seeing that as a heavy toll that this kind of stuff exists, and it's all over the place. People being held. President Trump administration try to use the Patriot Act to hold somebody in this limbo of deportation holding. Did you hear about them? They were doing that technique. The first person being indefinitely held on U.S. soil using Patriot Act stuff through ICE, through immigration stuff, because that's a hold they could put that doesn't get judicial review. And it was like this crazy kind of things that they're doing. And they always toy with this law. It's really up to us as lawyers to fight this. Even you might be a lawyer who doesn't like immigrants at all, but it's just when there's injustice in one place, it's going to get bigger and bigger and suck everyone into it. So you got to stop it.
That's right. I mean, immigration, it seems like it's kind of the canary in the mine. It's the first entry point to take away due process and other constitutional rights because it's the easiest, and there are more facially valid justifications for doing so than maybe with, at least that the American public is willing to buy, than with a United States citizen and those type of rights. So yeah, I think of it as the first area of defense for basic human rights in America. Just like they say that the way a country treats its prisoners is a reflection of that country's values, I think it's a similar thing with immigrants.
Yeah, I mean, there's 2 points that I think about a lot that they're doing immigration. One is a recent thing of having wanting to change the regulations where joint sponsors have to do full biometrics, and they're adding iris scans and all this kind of stuff. So surely they're attacking U.S. citizens and putting them into systems on the guise of, okay, it's immigration kind of stuff. They're sucking them in there. And then the other is the internal checkpoints and just the whole internal stopping of people to see if they're unlawfully present, which eventually will mean we have to carry IDs at all times, papers at all times to identify ourselves. That kind of un-American stuff coming in immigration angle and using that's going to really destroy the center or the core of the country where we believe. That I think is extremely dangerous. And even I implore people who have DHS who work to think about this stuff. You might stop one illegal immigrant or unauthorized immigrant, but you're taking away a piece of the country, what makes us free, as opposed to China or Iran or Russia or one of these countries that don't have these kind of freedoms. We don't want to go in that direction just to take 10 people off the street that came up unauthorized. It's you got to think of the big picture of what you're doing when you're doing these kind of activities.
Yeah, it's the way into infringing. I might butcher the statistic, but I think that the internal stopping 100 miles from a border, I think that covers something like 75 to 80% of all U.S. people living in the United States. That's essentially the whole country that you can stop without having to comply with all of the protections of the Fourth Amendment. That should be a scary thing to anybody.
It's crazy. Like that judge, the Supreme Court didn't okay it. I was blown away, and that kind of I went to law before going to law school. I had such high respect for Supreme Court and had this image. And the more I went to law school and started reading what they actually do, I'm like, wait a minute, this decision didn't make any sense. That people are super racist. What's going on? Like, when I started going back and studying immigration law history from this, like the late 1800s, early 1900s, and these big names at law school are like, oh, these are the justices that are big. And I'm reading their decisions, and the things they're saying is so abhorrent. I'm like, whoa, like it's kind of crazy. Yeah.
I'm not quite ready to throw out the Supreme Court yet. I was very disappointed in Justice Alito's use of words in the recent Thurasagam decision, and what Justice Thomas seems to want to get rid of immigration altogether. But I don't know. I'm not ready to throw them out yet. I'd rather just kind of flip the court.
I mean, it's an institution that's necessary for the way they design the republic. It's been a good release valve that the founders put in there. It's definitely there. But I've just become so, I guess, skeptical and just burned out on it all. And that's why, like, even practicing, I was trying to spend more time doing the toolbox and the podcast kind of stuff, because just seeing this stuff, I get to, one of the reasons I can't do asylum and remote defense is I get to emotionally involved into it. So I have a heightened sense of, emotionalness when it comes to it. Yeah. I can't shut off easily. So I have to kind of control myself what I take on. But even the DACA decision, this is going to be controversial and stuff, but the way they handled it was so weird, where they're like, they didn't do the right paperwork to get rid of DACA. I'm like, that's a kind of a weird argument to make to keep it. It was so bizarre the way they did it. And now, like, the whole situation around it to me was kind of weird. Now how they're handling it, and the recent thing where they said DACA is a year only, no new filings, even though the Supreme Court said restart everything, redo the paperwork. It's constantly like not just doing it right. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, it cuts both ways. First of all, I had a professor in law school who, I think he essentially said, to paraphrase, "You're crazy if you think that the justices aren't horse trading." So it's possible the DACA decision was simply Justice Roberts making deals with the court and wanting to stick it to Trump. But, they're not taking new DACA applicants does seem ridiculous based on the decision. But, It was always the case. If President Obama is going to do what you can do with executive order, you can probably take away. And if they had done it right, there would be, the APA is a good tool, but it has serious flaws. I think the biggest tragedy of all of this is you still have 800,000 or to 1 million dreamers, whatever it is, in limbo that are being with a political football. It should have been dealt with the Gang of Eight in 2013 with comprehensive immigration reform, and you had 40 or so conservative nut jobs in the House in the Freedom Caucus who prevented the will of the majority, including the Republican majority, from passing comprehensive immigration reform that would have dealt with this issue in a very human way. And so you get this stepchild of DACA based on executive order, and I put that squarely at the feet of the Freedom Caucus that prevented comprehensive immigration reform.
The DACA aspect, and that's the thing, it's such a controversial thing for immigration lawyers today, but I don't think it was a correct decision, because now that they said an executive order can't be undone that easily because it was an executive order, all the stuff that Trump did, now the travel bans, if Biden does come, this court can say, well, you didn't undo the travel ban properly, send it back and go do it through a whole system all over again. So we got to keep some consistency. And that kind of stuff, the lack of consistency bothers me, because it opens up this bureaucracy that never properly functions anymore because of that. I mean, it hasn't functioned well in my opinion, but it's even worse.
No, it's dangerous. It's a slippery slope. Hopefully the Biden administration comes into being and does it right when they act administratively.
We'll see. But what advice do you have for people that are starting now that you wish you knew when you were starting?
Well, we've touched on some of it. It's going to be an emotional roller coaster. Try your best.
Yeah.
Don't give advice if you don't know it, or if you don't admit that you don't know it. Tell the prospective client, I don't know it 100%. I'm going to go back. I'm going to look at it. I'm going to come back to you with an answer. I think it's this. I just need to do a little more research, because if you say one thing and it's wrong, you've undercut your credibility, and that's the most important thing you have. From kind of a joking standpoint, but not so much joking, I'd say the advice is, and I've been burned a couple times with this, is, don't fully believe anyone about your case, especially your client, without serious investigation and cross-examining your client. And that's a benefit for your client as well, because you don't want to hear about something for the first time in a USCIS interview with a fraud camera on, and then have to be thinking on your feet how you're going to avoid travesty and criminal charges. So, don't take anything anyone tells you at face value. In this profession, probably any lawyer, any client, or any opposing counsel. You have to come to the facts and the truth yourself.
A quick note of what you mentioned. In LA, San Bernardino, Orange County, and like San Jose, where I typically go for interviews, they've never had the USCIS camera on. Have you been to adjustment interviews where they have the camera on?
No, we've had the camera. Yeah, you walk in. Maybe it's a Miami specific thing, or maybe it's some of the kind of cases that we've had. And you walk into that interview and you see the camera, and I'm like, oh shit. Officer, can I have 10 minutes with my client, please?
So, I mean, what is one of your favorite marketing methods? And I probably know the answer to this already, but what method do you use?
Nah, you definitely know the answer to it already. I'm loving doing the podcast and being able to speak with our colleagues mostly, but even non-attorneys, non-immigration attorneys as well, and speak to them about immigration and speaking through the decisions that these judges are writing, but also providing my own opinions and context. It's a lot of fun. And so to speak through the immigration law and also to hopefully market myself in the firm at the same time has been a lot of fun and rewarding and an honor.
Yeah, definitely. And the reach you could have and all the new people you get to meet. We got to meet each other because of this. Right. Well, now you're in San Diego, it'd be a bit more likely chance we'd meet in person and stuff if COVID wasn't around. But yeah, in San Diego and stuff, it'd be really hard. I mean, if you're in Florida, so it's wonderful. And last question, what outside hobby do you have that, keeps you busy and keeps your mind straight?
Yeah, I don't need anything to keep me busy. I'm trying to make room for the hobbies of slalom skiing, water skiing, and surfing and that kind of stuff. It's one of the reasons that I'm really excited to be back in San Diego. If I can get in a water ski on on Mission Bay or a surf at Tourmaline before work, I think it just makes the whole day that much better. So I'm going to try and make that happen.
How did you get to slalom skiing? Being a Florida person, how did you get into that?
Well, there's skiing in South Florida on the lake there, but from a young age, my family would take trips to Maryland, and that's where I learned how to ski on lakes and I just came to love it. It's a great thing. It's a workout too. Right. At least I tell myself that.
I mean, I don't ski enough, but when I do the first day there, all my body hurts, and I realize skiing exercises every part of your body. It's right. It's pretty insane, how that.
And that's snow skiing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty bad at the snow skiing. The water skiing, it's my element, but the snow skiing I started later, and that's something else.
But even water skiing, I remember when I was a kid, I did a couple times. You have to have really powerful legs to keep it on and not burn out just your thighs and your legs just burning out from that pressure.
It's fun. It's cool, and it makes you feel good.
Awesome. Kevin, thank you so much for coming on. Definitely, I'll put the show links below. What's the name of your podcast?
It's Immigration Review. It's available everywhere, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, on the Kurzban website. We have all of the episodes listed on the Kurzban website and the show notes, at least for summaries of all the cases. But again, subscribe wherever you get your podcast. It's called Immigration Review.
Awesome. And Kevin's a great person. You want to hire for consulting or something, get some help in a case. He knows what's up and he has good resources. So definitely reach out. What's the best way people could reach you directly?
My work email, it's Gregg, KGREGG, @kktplaw.com.
Right. And I'll have that in your social media links and all that kind of stuff in the show notes. Yeah, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, John. Thanks for having me, and thank you for everything you're doing.
You got it, man. Look to talk to again in the future soon and carry it on. Definitely have you on the show again to bring your expert analysis on cases that I don't understand. Good to have someone that's on there talking about it. Have a good night.
Bye, John.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed this short clip from the material of the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox. If you want to get more information about becoming a premium member, just email me at info@immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com or visit the site immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com, where you'll see links to a lot of the information that we have for premium members. You can get a better idea of what's there, as well as on the YouTube page for the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox. We have much more clips and material that's helpful. If you wanted to buy something a la carte, visit ilt.thinkific.com.